To say that 28 years later, The Bone Temple exceeded my expectations is an understatement of gigantic proportions. In other words, buckle up, folks, this is a two-parter. Now, I'm not gonna lie, how can I lie to my lovely audience out there? There was a part of me that was a wee bit worried going into this movie. For one reason, this movie was filmed concurrently with 28 years later, except without Danny Boyle at the helm. Now, that is not any hate or negativity for Nia DaCosta, who took up the director's position. My concern was mainly that the themes and the story elements that Danny Boyle had set in place with 28 years later continued uninterrupted. There was also concern about this being a January movie, which studios normally use as dumping grounds for the movies they do not have faith in. After seeing this movie, it is safe to say that I will never doubt Nia DaCosta again. She not only ensures that this movie laid to rest any fear or worry or concern I had, but does so by ripping its spine out through its skull, Samson style. With 28 years later, The Bone Temple, Nia DaCosta weaves a chilling tale of the evil that people commit by choice, while laying seeds for hope of a better world. The movie is different in terms of tone when compared to its predecessor, but the message still rings true. 28 years later focused on how society at large lives in the aftermath of a catastrophe, how people learn to live amongst the death laid waste against the world. The Bone Temple narrows its focus in onto the choices that an individual makes when their life has been affected by said death and destruction. Now, before we actually get started on the deep, in-depth analysis of this movie, I will say it is a bummer that Spike does not have a bigger role in this story. It's a bummer. But it turns out not to be a negative. For as the movie continues, it becomes apparent that this chapter of the 28 years later saga is not his story. He plays a part in it, but this is the story of Kelson. It is the story of Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal. It is the story of Samson the Alpha. The three tales making up a triangle of how one can be affected and handles trauma. Kelson witnessed the outbreak as an adult. He lost people that he loved in this world. But nearly 30 years later, he continues to make the choice to do good in the world. He chooses to live amongst the bones of the dead, to be in solitude amongst the infected, and as such, carries with him a calm demeanor that is unafraid of death. A demeanor that can be disarming as well as comforting. This plays out not just in his interactions with the Alpha Samson, but in his one-on-one scene with Jimmy. A brilliant, top-tier performance from Ralph Fiennes, and an equally top-tier performance from Jack O'Connell. And speaking of Jack O'Connell, Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal also witnessed the horrific death and devastation released upon the world through this outbreak, but he saw it at a much younger age, as witnessed by audiences during the opening segment of 28 years later. And it broke him. It fractured his psyche. It left upon him a poisonous mark that will taint anything and anyone that he comes into interaction with. And it is the image of his father literally ushering in the infected before being torn apart before young Jimmy's eyes that plants it into his head that all of this death and devastation has been an act of God. Or in Jimmy's case, an act of Satan. And he has lived the rest of his life since with this strongly held belief that his father not only brought this evil into the world, but that his father is the devil, Old Nick himself. Jimmy chooses to commit evil and horrendous acts, all in the name of a father that he believes has forsaken him. In a way, Kelson and Jimmy are reflections of each other. Kelson representing science and the inherent goodness of mankind. Jimmy representing religion, indoctrination, and the evil that man will commit in the name of something he believes in. But we can't forget about Samson, or his Bone Temple. I think Samson is also a reflection of Jimmy. He is infected at the same age, and over time evolves into the brutal killing machine that is the Alpha. But his brutality, his actions, the violence he begets upon the world, these are not acts of his own accord. And while Jimmy's interaction with Kelson for only a brief moment leaves him stumbling and grasping desperately at his religious beliefs as a form of comfort, Samson's interactions with Kelson has him regaining a hold of his humanity. Of this tragedy triangle, Ralph Fiennes sits at the base, but Jack O'Connell and newcomer Kai Lewis Perry both make up the other parts with fantastic performances. O'Connell is terrifying as Sir Jimmy, capturing his sadistic nature, finding glee from violence and pain, very much a Charles Manson-like figure, as menacing as he is charming. The previously mentioned scene between Jimmy and Kelson is already, in my mind, on the ballot for Best Dramatic Scene of 2026, including a moment where the audience sees that the mask Jimmy has molded for himself slips for just a bit, exposing the scared little boy still underneath. The Bone Temple is as tragic as it is entertaining. Tragic in that we see how mindless violence can break a person, and that how they recover is dependent on things often outside of their own control. Tragic in that we see a man who has spent decades in solitude grasp desperately at the vestiges of memories from a previous life. Tragedy. And entertainment, because this movie also has the best damn and a half needle drop I have seen in a generation.